in the scorching sands of Egypt, where the Nile River carved civilization from the desert. One woman's name echoes through eternity with a power that rivals the pharaohs themselves. Cleopatra VII, Philopator, the last active pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt, a woman who spoke 9 languages, commanded vast armies, and seduced the most powerful men of Rome. Yet for all her legendary status, one mystery continues to captivate archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Where lies the tomb of the last pharaoh of Egypt? To understand the magnitude of this mystery, we must first journey back to 69 BCE, when Cleopatra was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek Macedonian royal family that had ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries since Alexander the Great's conquest. The Ptolemies were not native Egyptians, but they had adopted many Egyptian customs and religious practices, presenting themselves as divine pharaohs to their subjects while maintaining their Greek heritage and culture. Cleopatra was far from the exotic temptress that Hollywood would later portray. She was, by all historical accounts, a brilliant political strategist, a gifted linguist, and a shrewd economist. Ancient sources tell us she was the first Ptolemaic ruler in 300 years to actually learn the Egyptian language, speaking it fluently alongside Greek, Latin, Ethiopian, Hebrew, Arabic, and several other tongues. This linguistic prowess wasn't merely academic, it was a tool of statecraft that allowed her to communicate directly with her diverse subjects and foreign dignitaries without interpreters. When Cleopatra ascended to the throne at age 18, she inherited a kingdom in crisis. Egypt, once the wealthiest nation in the Mediterranean, was deeply in debt to Rome and politically unstable. The Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriages and power struggles had weakened the dynasty, and Roman influence loomed large over Egyptian affairs. Cleopatra initially co-ruled with her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, as was customary, but their relationship quickly deteriorated into civil war. It was during this turbulent time that Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BCE, pursuing his rival Pompey the Great. Legend has it that Cleopatra had herself smuggled to Caesar, wrapped in a carpeted dramatic entrance that began one of history's most famous political alliances. But this wasn't merely a romantic liaison, as popular culture suggests. Cleopatra's relationship with Caesar was a calculated political move designed to secure Egypt's independence and her own position as pharaoh. Caesar, already in his 50s and a seasoned politician, recognized in the 21-year-old Cleopatra a kindred spirit, an ambitious ruler who understood the complex dance of power and diplomacy. Their alliance proved mutually beneficial. Caesar gained Egypt's vast wealth and strategic position, while Cleopatra secured Roman protection for her throne. When she bore Caesar a son, Caesarion, it further cemented their political bond and gave her potential claim to Roman succession. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BCE thrust Cleopatra back into an uncertain world. Rome was fracturing in civil war, and Egypt's future hung in the balance. It was then that she formed her most famous alliance with Mark Antony, one of Rome's most powerful generals and a member of the Second Triumvirate that ruled the Roman Republic. The meeting between Cleopatra and Mark Antony in 41 BCE at Tarsus was orchestrated with the same theatrical flair that had impressed Caesar. Plutarch describes how she arrived dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, her barge decorated with purple sails and silver oars, while she reclined beneath a canopy of gold cloth. This was mere vanity, it was political theater designed to demonstrate Egypt's wealth and cultural sophistication to the Roman general. Their partnership lasted over a decade and produced 3 children. Together, they dreamed of creating an Eastern empire that could rival Rome itself. Antony divorced his Roman wife to marry Cleopatra in an Egyptian ceremony, and they began minting coins bearing both their images. Cleopatra's influence extended beyond Egypt's borders as she helped Antony secure territories in the eastern Mediterranean, while he provided military protection for her kingdom. However, their ambitions brought them into direct conflict with Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir and Antony's rival in the triumvirate. The propaganda war between Octavian and the Antony-Cleopatra alliance was fierce. Octavian portrayed Antony as a Roman general corrupted by foreign influence, enslaved by an exotic queen who threatened Roman values and traditions. This narrative, designed to legitimize Octavian's war against a fellow Roman, would persist in Western literature for centuries. The final confrontation came at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Despite commanding a formidable fleet, Antony and Cleopatra's forces were defeated by Octavian's navy. Ancient sources disagree about what happened during the battle. Some claim Cleopatra fled at a crucial moment. Others suggest it was a strategic withdrawal. What is certain is that the defeat marked the beginning of the end for both their ambitions and their lives. Retreating to Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra found themselves besieged by Octavian's advancing armies. Ancient historians describe their final months as a mixture of desperate military preparations and decadent celebration. They reportedly formed a suicide pact called the Order of Those Who Will Die Together, hosting elaborate banquets while their world crumbled around them. When Alexandria finally fell in 30 BCE, Mark Antony received false news that Cleopatra had already killed herself. In despair, he fell on his sword, but survived long enough to be carried to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where he died in her arms. Cleopatra herself died several days later, and with her death, Egypt became a Roman province and the Ptolemaic dynasty ended after nearly 3 centuries of rule. The circumstances of Cleopatra's death have become the stuff of legend. The popular image of her allowing an aspa, a symbol of divine pharaonic power, to bite her breast is dramatic but probably inaccurate. Ancient sources suggest she may have used a poisonous ointment or a combination of toxic substances. The snake story, while symbolically appealing, was likely Octavian's propaganda, designed to emphasize her exotic foreignness to Roman audiences. But here's where history becomes mystery. Both Plutarch and Cassius Dio record that Octavian allowed Cleopatra and Mark Antony to be buried together in Egypt, as she had requested. Octavian, now Augustus Caesar, had every reason to treat her remains with respect. She was, after all, the mother of Julius Caesar's son and a queen who had surrendered with dignity rather than fleeing her kingdom. Yet despite extensive searching, no trace of Cleopatra's tomb has ever been found. This isn't simply a matter of poor record-keeping or the passage of time. Ancient Alexandria was one of the most thoroughly documented cities in the ancient world. The location of the tombs of other Ptolemaic rulers are known, and many have been excavated. The fact that Cleopatra's burial place has vanished so completely is genuinely puzzling. Several theories attempt to explain this mystery. The first suggests that her tomb lies somewhere in Alexandria, the great city she ruled for nearly 2 decades. Ancient sources indicate that Cleopatra had begun construction of her mausoleum before her death, possibly near the harbor or in the royal quarter of the city. However, much of ancient Alexandria now lies underwater due to earthquakes and rising sea levels over the centuries. Marine archaeologists have discovered remarkable artifacts in Alexandria's harbor, including statues, columns, and building foundations, but no royal tomb has been definitively identified. The underwater excavations have revealed tantalizing clues. Colossal statues believed to represent Ptolemaic rulers have been found, along with sphinx and obelisks that once adorned the royal quarter. These discoveries confirm that significant portions of ancient Alexandria do indeed lie beneath the Mediterranean, raising the possibility that Cleopatra's tomb is similarly submerged. A second theory places her tomb somewhere in the desert surrounding Alexandria. Some archaeologists believe that political instability or natural disasters might have prompted the relocation of her remains to a more secure location outside the city. The discovery of Ptolemaic-era tombs at sites like Taposiris Magna, about 30 miles west of Alexandria, has led some researchers to speculate that Cleopatra might be buried in this area. Dr. Kathleen Martinez, a Dominican lawyer turned archaeologist, has spent over a decade excavating at Taposiris Magna, convinced that this temple complex holds the key to finding Cleopatra's tomb. Her team has uncovered coins bearing Cleopatra's image, statues that may represent her and Mark Antony, and a complex network of tunnels beneath the temple. While no tomb has been found yet, Martinez argues that the site's location, its connection to the god Osiris, and the archaeological evidence all point to its significance in Cleopatra's final resting place. The temple at Taposiris Magna is dedicated to Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld and rebirth. Given Cleopatra's identification with the goddess Isis, Osiris's wife in Egyptian mythology, Some scholars believe she might have chosen to be buried at a site sacred to Isis's divine husband. This would align with the religious symbolism that was so important to pharaonic burial traditions. A third, more controversial theory suggests that Cleopatra's tomb might have been discovered but not recognized, or that it was deliberately concealed by later rulers. The early Roman emperors had complex relationships with their Egyptian province. While they exploited Egypt's wealth, they also respected its ancient traditions and sometimes presented themselves as pharaohs to their Egyptian subjects. It's possible that Augustus or his successors might have moved or hidden Cleopatra's tomb for political reasons. Some researchers have even proposed that Cleopatra's remains might have been moved multiple times throughout history. Early Christian emperors might have relocated pagan burial sites, Arab conquerors might have disturbed Ptolemaic tombs, and later rulers might have scattered or destroyed royal remains for various political or religious reasons. The search for Cleopatra's tomb involves more than just archaeology. It requires understanding the complex political and religious landscape of ancient Egypt. Cleopatra wasn't simply a ruler. She was considered a living goddess by her subjects. Her burial would have followed elaborate pharaonic traditions, designed to ensure her successful journey to the afterlife and her continued divine status. Pharaonic tombs typically contained vast quantities of treasure, religious artifacts, and personal possessions needed for the afterlife journey. Cleopatra's tomb would likely have been filled with gold, jewels, sacred texts, and symbols of her royal power. The economic value of such a discovery would be enormous, but the historical and cultural significance would be immeasurable. Modern technology has revolutionized the search for Cleopatra's tomb. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and underwater robotics allow archaeologists to explore areas that were previously inaccessible. Sonar mapping of Alexandria's harbor has revealed the underwater city in unprecedented detail, while advanced imaging techniques can detect buried structures without excavation. Genetic analysis also offers new possibilities. If Cleopatra's remains are found, DNA testing could confirm her identity and provide insights into Ptolemaic family relationships, health, and origins. Such analysis might finally resolve questions about her appearance, ancestry, and the various claims made by ancient sources about her lineage. The political situation in modern Egypt has both helped and hindered the search. Egyptian authorities are naturally protective of their archaeological heritage, and international excavations require extensive permits and oversight. However, the Egyptian government recognizes the potential tourism value of discovering Cleopatra's tomb and has supported several major archaeological projects. Recent discoveries have added new dimensions to our understanding of Cleopatra's world. The excavation of her palace complex in Alexandria has revealed sophisticated engineering, luxurious decorations, and evidence of the international trade that made Egypt so wealthy. These findings help archaeologists understand where and how Cleopatra might have chosen to be buried. The mystery of Cleopatra's lost tomb reflects broader questions about how we remember historical figures. Cleopatra has been portrayed as everything from a seductive temptress to a feminist icon, often with little regard for historical accuracy. Finding her tomb might help separate the real woman from centuries of myth and propaganda. What we know for certain is that Cleopatra was one of the most remarkable rulers of the ancient world. She governed Egypt for nearly 2 decades during a period of immense political upheaval, maintained her kingdom's independence longer than any contemporary ruler, and left a legacy that has inspired artists, writers, and political leaders for over 2 millennia. Her tomb, when it's finally discovered, will likely tell us much about her reign, her death, and the sophisticated civilization she ruled. It may contain her library. Cleopatra was known to be a patron of learning and may have arranged for important texts to be buried with her. It might hold correspondence with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, providing new insights into these crucial relationships that shaped the ancient world. The search continues in multiple locations across Egypt. Each excavation season brings new discoveries, new theories, and new hopes. Whether Cleopatra lies beneath the Mediterranean waters of Alexandria, in the desert sands near Taposiris Magna, or in some other location entirely, her tomb remains one of archaeology's greatest prizes. Until that momentous discovery, Cleopatra VII Philopator remains what she has been for over 2,000 years, a figure suspended between history and legend, between the known and the unknowable. The last pharaoh of Egypt continues to guard her secrets, waiting in whatever magnificent tomb she constructed for herself, ready to astound the world one final time when she is finally found. The mystery of her lost tomb serves as a reminder that even in our age of satellite imagery and advanced technology, the ancient world still holds secrets waiting to be revealed. Somewhere in Egypt, the most famous queen in history lies in eternal rest, surrounded by the treasures of her kingdom and the artifacts of her remarkable life, patiently awaiting the archaeologist who will finally solve the greatest mystery of ancient Egypt.